And we are beyond thrilled to have this time with you. We've been running these Project Empower sessions literally since 2001. That we flipped them to be virtual in the pandemic. And when that happened, we've had this wonderful reach. And the resources that we get to share now have been made possible by the Institute of Education Sciences. And we are one of four projects, one of four research teams that got funding to actually design on demand, in demand professional learning resources on top priorities. We actually got to survey 720 people from four different geographic regions, and they told us what they wanted. And so what we're sharing with you is prioritized by educators like yourself. And I want to say a lot of us on this team, we've been teachers, we have been behavior specialists, some of us have worked in clinics, some of us have been administrators. So we come to you with a lot of different facets. So when we talk about Ci3T and having one coordinated system, and you don't have to have Ci3T to be able to do these strategies tonight, but having these system in place is wonderful because it facilitates communication, not just within your school, but beyond it with your families. And so as you start to explore these modules today, and I love how people are putting stuff in the chat right now, as you start to explore these, you're welcome to use anything that's there. You can't sell it, but you are welcome to use it. And so we want you to use it in your classrooms. The strategies you're going to learn tonight are two things that you could literally take back and use tomorrow. And we hope that you will. And you can also, people have been asking us like, oh my gosh, like I teach as an adjunct professor. Can I use that? Answer, absolutely, without a doubt. These are designed with input from educators literally coast to coast, and we are excited to have them. We were initially commissioned to teach we built 8 modules. We have close to 40. I have fewer friends that I had in the beginning of this project, but those that have stuck with it are still rolling strong. So if you have found this page right now, go ahead and click found it. And if you're having any trouble, like appreciate that. Give that 1 second and we'll see how that comes up. And I know David will be able to help you troubleshoot that to find an access point. And agreed with Wendy. Yep, absolutely wonderful for pre-service and in-service teachers. So as you're coming in and getting situated, I want to reassure you that you only do this first-time user thing one time right now. So every time you go into the modules, the thing that you will put in is going to be the email address that you use there. And we want to be very transparent. These resources that we're sharing with you, we want to know what you're using and how that's going, and we'd love to have your feedback. So if you look below that yellow box that you see on my screen, and if you see the little thing that says Ci3T usage rating profile, that is a very, very short survey, hand to God, under 10 minutes, and it gives you an opportunity just to tell us what you think after you've taken a peek in there. And we actually use that information to shape revisions. What we are focusing on today, as I'll explain in just a moment, are just 2 strategies, and they can be used at tier 1 for every single kid in your building. They can also be used as a targeted tier 2 intervention for kids that are showing moderate risk. These are also often woven into other intervention packages at tier 2 and tier 3. So these are wonderfully versatile and ultra practical. And one of the things I love about these 2 is that you're not stopping to do the behavior thing. You are actually doing this while you teach. And we often say it is like threading a needle to be able to weave into the daily fabric of instruction these strategies that are designed to empower teachers with the specific skills that they need to maximize engagement and limit challenging behaviors. If you are new to these modules, you can take a look at this infographic. There's one in every one of the modules, and this will go over how to use it. But the short story is on the left-hand side is a navigation pane. There's a little arrow to click to the right. You've got some additional guidance if you are somebody that's in a leadership role where you're coaching or you're a presenter at your district or your district decision maker. And then we also learned like some people didn't want to read, and that's okay too. So we have a whole interactive resource. And so the nice thing is you're going to have different breakout rooms tonight where you're going to get an opportunity to gather with other people to do some exploration. And I want to emphasize that these Project Empower sessions that we're here tonight, these are designed for people that are in classrooms, in school buildings, and they're also designed for families. And we often will have family members, grandparents, people, foster parents, people that are parenting in a variety of different ways, that they're coming to learn strategies that allow you to be positive to get the desired behavior that you're looking for. And I know like Wendy and I have done lots of studies through the years, and one thing that consistently comes back is people keep saying, I really know how to teach the academics. What I really need help with is maximizing engagement in my classroom. And how do I do that in a way that creates very positive, warm, and welcoming classrooms? So that's why we're here. So tonight, these are your objectives. We're going to focus on these two strategies. And as I mentioned, we're going to learn how to do it as part of everyday practices for every single kid in instructional and non-instructional settings. We're going to talk about how to do this with just greater intensity as a tier 2 support. So if you're here today and you're at a school that has a Ci3T implementation plan in place, this might just be one of your intervention grids. And we're also going to show you how it can be part of a tier 2 and part of a tier 3. So we're going to go through literally the step-by-step resources to do it. And then if you are going to do this as something extra, we always want to check 3 things. Is it happening as planned? Because if you don't collect treatment integrity, it's just like a dude talking about his dating life in high school. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. We got to have the data. And secondly, before you get started, we're going to ask you to think about from the kids' perspective, like social validity, to find out, are you comfortable with the goals, the procedures, and the outcomes? And we're going to ask the families, the teacher, and the kids themselves. And then, of course, we're going to collect data to see how it's working. If you are here tonight pursuing BCBA units, go ahead and put a little note in the chat. You've been communicating with the wonderfully talented Eric Common and Stacy Williams on that. They will hook you up, not in a creepy way, but they'll make sure that you get what you need in terms of those units that you're going to be doing. So that is where we're going tonight. So you've had a quick little welcome. We're going to go over these strategies. We're going to break them down into those 2 different approaches, and we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive with those things. And so, and then we're going to wrap up. And at the very end, we'll tell you what's coming next. For you to find what you're looking for tonight, we've already, if some of you who got in a few minutes early might have already opened up the modules. If you go to the tab that says professional learning page, you're looking at that 3rd mint green, like it reminds me of mint chocolate chips. Excellent color, David. That 3rd one has everything that you would need. Like you can have this presentation, you will have all the handouts, you will have what you need, but have fun in the module is where we're really hoping you'll go tonight. So thank you for listening to that. We're going to change over now and you're going to hear from the wonderful Allison Bernard. And while she is pulling up her information on her screen, I'm going to invite you to write down the word if you are here tonight to pursue BCBA unit. So we're turning it over to Allie. Everybody give her a huge shout out in the chat. Say something nice, post an emoji, high five, fist bump, do something wonderful. Let's hear it, Allie.
Thank you. Can everyone see my screen? Just making sure.
We can. And I just like everybody notice on my team, it is 4:38. I had exactly 8 minutes to do that, and I am on time. It is a miracle, holiday miracle right here, people. Back to you, Allie.
I am very proud of you. So again, if you missed that BCBA password, they'll be here on our slide, and then we'll be announcing them as well. So the first one is today I'm going to do an overview of what teacher-delivered low-intensity strategies look like in a Ci3T model, if my slides advance. So low-intensity strategies can be used across Tier 1, 2, and 3. And today we're going to walk you through how to do that. We'll give a little overview of the ones that we have on our website, and then do a deep dive into pre-correction and active supervision, which I'm super excited about. So in addition to attending this Empower session today, we have some additional supports on our Enhanced tab of our website to support gaining a greater understanding of how you can support teachers or yourself. We know that our greatest efforts are focused at Tier 1, as that is where the majority of students fall. As you're looking at your social validity data, treatment integrity data, conducting systematic universal screening for academics and behavior 3 times a year, along with collecting school-wide data for all students, such as through attendance, nurses' visits, suspension, state scores, GPA, and so on. You're making these decisions on how you can support students at different stages. So while we know that and expect to reach a lot of students at Tier 1, we know that some students are going to need more than Tier 1 supports have to offer. So you might ask, where does this fit into a Ci3T integrated system? And the answer to that would be in your Ci3T implementation manual in your Tier 2 grids. And if you aren't part of a school that doesn't yet have a Tier 2 system in place, like I was throughout my career, unfortunately, you can still make database decisions and review some of the supports on our website, and specifically read more about the Tier 2 process in our module that's featured here with this yellow cover. As you guessed it, the title is the Tier 2 process. We also know that some students will need more than Tier 1 and Tier 2 have to offer. So we have some additional modules that can walk you through supporting those students, like the FABI series, modules on internalizing behavior, um, students with acting out behaviors. And again, if you're in a Ci3T school, you can find decision making and the data that you would need to enter those students into those interventions. We have some example grids if you're not in a school and you still want to make those database decisions of suggested entrance criteria and information about the intervention itself and who might support this implementation. So like Kathleen mentioned earlier, we have 4 ways that you can implement low intensity teacher delivered strategies across the tiers. First, you can use it as a component of Tier 1 instruction as a means to increase engagement and prevent disruptive behavior, or you can use it as just a standalone Tier 2 intervention and increase its intensity a little bit for a few students. Additionally, it can be used as a component or a part of a Tier 2 intervention. So perhaps embedding it into a targeted skill, such as through writing instruction. And then it can also be used as a component or part of a Tier 3 intervention as well. So once again, if you are someone who is already implementing Ci3T, you can pull up your manual right now, and you'll often find that low intensity strategies are listed already in your what your faculty and staff have to offer as a Tier 1 support under those faculty and staff responsibilities. So tonight we're featuring 2 low intensity strategies that you might consider using. However, we have this really cool features in some of our modules called an interaction, and it looks like this. This is a snip of one of them, and as you click through these boxes, you can get a little snippet of each one, and it is found in this Tier 1 module on these green covers. And Kathleen likes to point out that we didn't specifically intend this, but the girl with the purple shirt, this module talks about briefly about each of these low intensity strategies, and then each of the low intensity strategy modules are found in blue that you can take a deeper dive into each one. So you might, it's almost Thanksgiving break. You might consider sharing out this interaction or some of the resources that we have on our website with some of your faculty and staff as we get into that point of the school year when we're seeing behavior start to increase and patients start to decrease. So Grant and I are going to provide a deeper dive into active supervision and pre-correction. But like I said, within this interaction, you can find little tidbits of information about each of these low intensity strategies. And then also check out our upcoming Empower sessions to see what other strategies are being featured similar to tonight's ones. And we would encourage you to sign up now to hold a spot in those sections. So each of these sections we'll go over what each one is so we can touch base on a little piece of that. Let's see if my slide will advance now. There we go. So active supervision is when you're establishing expectations and then you're scanning the room to monitor if those students are exhibiting those behaviors. Behavior specific praise asks you to use praise statements that clearly state what desirable behavior has been performed. That one's a really popular one and really easy to implement, as are all of these. High P request sequence is used when you make requests that a student is likely to respond to, and then you provide a reinforcement for appropriately responding. So statements that you might use would be like, take out your pencil and paper and then write your name on your paper instead of just saying begin your independent work. It's more specific. Instructional choice is going to provide students choice within the school day. It's super important and possible and more feasible than you might expect to be able to do this. And then instructional feedback, providing information to students on their performance. We have opportunities to respond, which is giving students frequent opportunities to them to respond to teacher questions. And then our one of our features for tonight is pre-correction, which is reminding students of expectations before beginning an activity or transitions. So again, if you were using this as a tier 2 standalone intervention for targeted students, here's what it might look like in your implementation manual in your tier 2 grid. So we have a description of the intervention, the entry criteria, what you could use to progress monitor, and then exit criteria. Okay, now we are going to watch a video on using low intensity supports as an intervention.
Low intensity supports as intervention building blocks. Low intensity supports like behavior-specific praise, active supervision, pre-correction, and instructional feedback are building blocks of many effective interventions. Knowing how to use these supports helps make sure that interventions you use to support your students will achieve positive outcomes. Consider the case of Mia, a second grader in Mr. Turner's class. Mia struggles with acting out behaviors like shouting out during instruction and breaking pencils and crayons when bored or frustrated. To help Mia, Mr. Turner connected her with a support listed in his school's Tier 2 intervention grid called Check-In and Check-Out. As part of Check-In and Check-Out, Mia begins her day by meeting with a mentor, a paraprofessional named Julie. They review school-wide expectations and prepare her to be successful that day. In class, Mr. Turner completes a daily progress report at set intervals throughout the day and then provides feedback to Mia on her behavior. At the end of the day, Mia meets with Julie and shows off her daily progress report. If she meets her daily goal, she even gets to choose a reward from a reinforcement menu. The daily progress report is also sent home so that Mia's grandmother could also help reinforce Mia's positive behavior. Throughout the daily steps of using Check-In and Check-Out, several low-intensity strategies were used as building blocks to help make this intervention successful. During the morning check-in, Julie, Mia's mentor, always uses behavior-specific praise to acknowledge Mia for being respectful and responsible, such as for being on time for the check-in. She also uses pre-correction to help remind Mia of the expectations for the classroom. When Mia heads to her classroom, Mr. Turner also uses low-intensity supports as part of the check-in and check-out procedures. He uses pre-correction at the beginning of each period on the daily progress report to remind Mia of the expectations. During the period, he uses active supervision by moving through the classroom and checking in with Mia verbally by using behavior-specific praise when she's meeting expectations, and using instructional feedback to provide constructive corrections if necessary. At the end of each period, he again uses those strategies to briefly check in as part of the brief but constructive conversation to conclude the daily progress report interval. At the end of each day, Julie checks in with Mia and reviews the daily progress report. Julie again uses behavior-specific praise and instructional feedback as part of their daily closeout. When Mia goes home, she reviews her daily progress report with her grandma. Even her grandma gets in on the use of low-intensity strategies by providing behavior-specific praise and feedback in her conversations about Maya's day. From this example, you can see how fluency in using low-intensity supports is an important building block for implementing other Tier 2 or Tier 3 strategies. This is a great reason to continue learning how to put these supports in practice to support your students.
Okay, well, that was a
Give it up for Mark Buckman and the dancing machine music. We gotta love that.
That was upbeat. I like that video. So we know that a lot of you are here today in different capacities. So you might be a teacher or a coach or an administrator. And so we wanted to show you a few examples of how you might build the capacity of other people to learn more about these low intensity strategies. So you might consider holding a standalone professional learning, a book study, or an article. If you're interested in an article, we can suggest a few for you. You can build things out from our modules, such as using our videos and infographics like we've done in these presentations. Or you can have people explore the modules independently if that's more of their interest. So just thinking about Also building on-site experts. So think about people in your building who are already doing these things really wonderfully, like behavior-specific praise, and go to them and ask them if they would be willing to be an on-site expert to try and coach people or provide suggestions and model what they're using and doing in their classrooms. People, I think, would be excited to do that. So now we are going to go into our first talk time and discuss what are some strategies you are using most often or are most interested in trying, and then potentially like what tier you would implement them in.
A lot of the things that I'm seeing in the chat, and I think you've mentioned lots of ways that can really help you to have very positive and productive interactions with the students. And all that is like a trust deposit in terms of creating a comfortable classroom climate where they know the majority of the interaction is for something positive. And it's very different than how many of us used to be trained to teach back in the day. There was so much time where people used to get a lot of instruction on when a challenging problem happens. These are all the things that you do. It used to be back in the day, write somebody's name on the board, put a check by their name, 2 checks, 3 checks, they leave your room. But if it's 8:45 in the morning, where do you go? Where do you go with that? Because then those kids are growing old together in the office. So one of the things that I think you're going to find is a real benefit for tonight is that these 2 very practical strategies can be done while you're teaching. They can be done while you're supervising, whether it's in a hallway or in a cafeteria. And you're just adding 2 more tools to your toolkit. And if you're somebody that gets to work with paraprofessional or families, we also have some resources that we can share with you about how these can be used in digital environments and how they can be used in home settings. And you'll be able to find things like that in the resources that we're going to share in the modules. And you'll also, we can give you some other articles if you're looking to dig a little bit deeper. So in just a moment, Stacy is going to open up breakout rooms and she's going to give you some instructions on how to push you there.
Precorrection is a simple, proactive strategy that helps solve everyday problems with minimal planning. Precorrection is an antecedent-based positive behavior support that emphasizes changing the environment to promote student engagement and reduce the likelihood of challenging behavior. Precorrection can be used throughout the school day as a simple yet effective Tier 2 support. It can be used as a standalone Tier 2 support or added to existing Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. For example, precorrection may also serve as an antecedent-based strategy as part of a Tier 3 functional assessment-based intervention or individualized de-escalation plan. Precorrection involves providing students with a proactive reminder of what behaviors are expected of them with the goal of preventing problems before they arise. It can take many different forms. For example, precorrection can be visual supports like behavior expectation posters or verbal prompts delivered shortly before a problem behavior is anticipated in the setting where it usually occurs, followed by strong reinforcement for engaging in appropriate behavior. Precorrection is a very flexible strategy. It can be used virtually in any setting with any group of students and is easily adapted to any activity or subject area where problem behaviors are anticipated. In fact, you may already use precorrection without realizing it. If you have ever reminded students to show their work before taking a math test or to line up and walk quietly in the hallway before students get ready to transition to lunch, you have used precorrection. There are different ways you can use precorrection. Here are a few examples. Class, in 5 minutes, we're going to start cleaning up and transition to math work. It's almost time for lunch. Who can remind us of one way we show respect in the hallway? When reading an unfamiliar word, remember to point to the first letter and say its sound. If you are starting to feel a little tense or nervous, you might use your measured breathing strategy to remain calm. Thank you for watching. Please visit Ci3T.org for more information and additional resources.
Precorrection is defined as a preventative behavior strategy used to identify predictable contexts in which problem behavior often occurs. And it is the providing of students with prompts, supports, and reinforcement for engaging in appropriate behavior. And there are 8 steps to pre-correction, and we're going to go through each of those right now. Pre-correction can be used in a variety of settings and across domains. So it can be used as an academic reminder. So you might say things like, when reading an unfamiliar word, remember to point out the first letter and say its sound. Behaviorally, you could say, Sonia, we're about to go sit in our carpet spot. So remember to walk and keep your hands and feet to yourself, showing responsibility. And then also as a social and emotional reminder, you could say, just a reminder to listen carefully to opposing arguments as we prepare for mock trial. So like I said, it's not only just for academic settings. You can use this during transition time or when you're moving from the cafeteria to back to the lunchroom or the playground. You can also use it within the classroom if you're transitioning maybe from a small group to a whole group, or if you want students to meet certain expectations when they're taking a test or things like that. It's really opens itself up to being really personalized and diverse to your setting. So if you are a Ci3T school implementing your intervention grids, this is where you might find it as a tier 2 or standalone. So we have the description of what it would look like, the entry criteria, how you would progress monitor this, because it seems like, oh, can I progress monitor it? But yes, you actually can. And then exit criteria if you feel like students are meeting those goals. So like I said, there are 8 steps to implement it. The first one is to identify the context and anticipated behavior. So let's use transition time as an example here. So you might think, oh, I'm having a lot of issues with my students walking quietly in the hallway. They're really running around. They're not walking in a straight line. And I'd really like them to do that more quietly and in a more organized fashion. So what you would do is operationally define what that challenging behavior looks like and what you're wanting to reduce. You might also consider the context of this. What is the time of day that this is occurring? Is it more frequently in the morning or in the afternoon after they've coming in from recess? What's the type of activity? Are they moving from into a less preferred activity and they were just working in a more preferred activity? And then what is the location? So like I talked about, it is diverse in where you can implement this, not just in a classroom setting, but in all settings of a school and outside of a school, like on a bus. So another example, let's consider a behavior you might want to reduce and then use step 1 to define that behavior. So rough housing in the hallway. When we're thinking of this, a lot of different people might have a different definition of what rough housing in the hallway could be. So we want to explicitly define that. So we've defined it as physical, high energy play involving direct physical interaction between students with observable signs of enjoyment, for example, laughter, positive verbal feedback, and the absence of injury or distress. Then we're going to provide examples of what that looks like. So pushing, shoving, tickling, wrestling, or chasing. I've been witness to all of these in a middle school hallway. And then non-examples would be walking, talking, and waving. And then we're going to consider, where do these behaviors occur most? And that would be in a transition to and from lunch and then at dismissal. So we've defined the behavior and when it occurs. The next step is to determine what the expected behavior would be if they're not roughhousing in the hallway, right? And so you can look to your expectation matrix to see specifically what are the expected behaviors. So in the hallway, I'm going to be respectful by using a quiet voice, facing forward. I'll be responsible by staying in line with my class. And then I'll give best effort by moving directly toward my next location. The third step is to adjust the environment. And you can't always do this, but you might consider this. In between Thanksgiving and the winter break, when I was teaching middle school, I was having a lot of challenging behavior in my classroom. And I asked my mentor from the university to come and observe my class. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, she's going to suggest all these wonderful interventions that I can do with my students, because I unfortunately didn't work in a school that had a tiered system. And so we just kind of made decisions based on data, and I wanted her to come and observe the behaviors. And she did so very politely. She walked into the room, conducted like a 50-minute observation, and left. And when she called me later that night, she was like, Allison, consider some things that you could do to change your behavior to adjust the environment. And I was like, thank you so very much. I'm going to try to do this for the next few weeks. So some things that you can consider to alter the environment would be changing a seating arrangement, whether that's moving individual students around or the physical structure of the classroom. You can incorporate a more structured playground activity like hopscotch or basketball certain days of the week, certain things like that. Consider changing your teacher behavior. Grant is going to give us a great in-depth overview of active supervision, so increasing scanning and movement around the classroom. And then if possible, which it's not always possible, you can change your schedule. And that doesn't always look like moving math from the end of the day to the beginning of the day. It could be a more preferred activity as the students are beginning math, right? So maybe it's not just take out your pencil and copy this problem off the board. Maybe it's talk with a partner instead. And then step 4 is going to be to provide opportunities for behavior rehearsal. So it is November, and we're also way past when we've already taught those expected behaviors at the beginning of the school year. And so while students might know these, they're going to need some helpful reminders. And also we shouldn't assume that students know what is expected if this is a new behavior that's occurring, or you're expecting something different out of them than they may previously have known. So we're going to provide positive opportunities to practice these behavioral expectations in a non-punitive way. And so we might say, okay, we've had a really great day. Let's practice going from the cafeteria back into the classroom. And so I'm expecting you to model being respectful, being responsible, giving best effort, and then using that expectation matrix to guide your instruction. Then our 5th step is to provide strong reinforcement to students engaging in that expected behavior. So incorporating the use of behavior-specific praise paired with a reinforcer. You can say things like, Joe, you did a great job of quietly pulling out a book to read while your friends finish their worksheet. This is a great example of being respectful and being responsible. Here is a ticket or whatever reinforcement system your school or classroom might use. Step 6 is to develop a prompting plan to remind students about the expected behavior. This is beneficial not only for the students, but you as well, if you're like me, someone who forgets things quite often. So you might consider implementing a gestural prompt. So like holding up your hand in the stop position when you want students to pause their conversations. You might also have a verbal cue, like counting down from 10 and reminding them of those expectations. So whenever I get to 1, I expect you to be working independently or back at your seat. And then also considering an environmental reminder, so putting tape on the floor of what does a straight line look like when we're lining up to exit the door. And you might also consider putting that expectation poster right there, specific to the behavior that you're expecting of lining up and walking quietly to the cafeteria. Step 7 is to monitor that plan to determine if the effectiveness of if it's working, right? So you're going to think about, is it happening? Am I doing it? Am I doing all the steps? Am I doing all the steps correctly? And then you're going to ask people what they think about it. What do you think about it personally? What do the families think about it? What do the students themselves think about it? And then lastly, we're going to look at student outcomes. Is this actually working to support the changes that you'd like to see? And if not, you might consider keeping this and working it into your tier 1 practices, or and then adding some other maybe low intensity strategies or connecting with someone at your school site. Again, we have so many free available supports to walk you through this. So you might be thinking like, how am I supposed to remember all these steps and if I'm doing them correctly? Well, we have a ton of treatment integrity forms, a pre and post to see if you are doing a self-check. You might have a secondary observer come in to see if you're implementing all the steps. And then we also have this really cool progress monitoring tracker that can keep track of your data over time for you electronically. Again, if you are wanting to locate these materials in our module, the pre-correction module, the purple part of the purple bank, you would click on that module, and then on the left-hand side, you would scroll to pages 16, 17, and 18 to find some of these forms. And embedded in there are some reading on how and why we would do this. And then lastly, step 8 is to offer students an opportunity to give us feedback on this strategy. And we would use a student social validity questionnaire. I personally think it's very important to ask students what they think, because if they're not liking this, maybe there's a miscommunication on what's happening, and this provides an opportunity to build a stronger relationship with them and improve the classroom environment. So those were all of the 8 steps, and we have even more things available to support you, and so you can support others in implementing this. We have infographics, we have information for families so that they can implement pre-correction at home, videos for families, and also videos for faculty and staff, all located within that module. You can find these embedded throughout the module, as well as on that overview page. It lists them all. And on the page version and an individual link as well, take you right to the resource. So the next thing we're going to do, not right now, but in a few minutes, I want you to think about what you would like to do to explore pre-correction a little bit more. So I will invite you to maybe do an individual module exploration where you just want some quiet time to dig more deeper through these resources that I've just talked about. Maybe you want to work through using it as a component of a tier 1 instruction, or possibly a standalone tier 2 intervention. And then if you're a trainer or a coach, we have a room set up for you to be able to ask questions and get some more guidance if you'd like. And if you are here in the great state of Kansas, we know that you can now earn PD points for attending sessions like this, and applying them to up your points. And we're happy to review materials before you upload. And if you're not here in Kansas, that's okay. We're still going to have you be able to walk away with the knowledge application of these resources, so that tomorrow you can immediately go back and implement these into your classroom. So as we head into this next talk time, we'll choose one of these rooms, and I'm going to have Stacy, again, the lovely Stacy, tell us how we can move into that.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Grant Allen. I am an assistant professor of special education at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, which is in Menominee, Wisconsin. Some of you may know that Wisconsin is America's dairy land, and we're proud of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about active supervision now. So active supervision is yet another low-intensity strategy in our suite of low-intensity supports aimed at helping educators, teachers to increase engagement and minimize disruption in working with students. So let's talk about some stuff that you might find in our module. One such thing might be there's an active supervision brief video. Active supervision is a low-intensity teacher-delivered strategy that can support students engaging in expected behavior. It involves frequently and proactively monitoring students during specific settings or times by engaging in behaviors such as scanning, escorting, and interacting with students. Active supervision is very flexible and can be used at each level of prevention. At Tier 1, active supervision is one of several proactive, evidence-based strategies used to support students' active engagement. For students who may need additional supports, active supervision can also be used as a standalone Tier 2 intervention, can be embedded into existing Tier 2 interventions, or can be included as a component of a Tier 3 intervention. Active supervision incorporates the distinct elements of established expectations, frequent scanning of the context, positive interactions that include verbal and nonverbal pre-corrections and prompts, reinforcement of desired behavior, and, when necessary, correction to help success. Two key components of active supervision are proximity and positive reinforcement. Proximity involves moving closer to a student or group of students to signal that the teacher is aware of what the students are doing. Positive reinforcement is anything that follows a behavior that makes that behavior more likely to occur in the future. When we talk about positive reinforcement in the context of active supervision, we are most often talking about behavior-specific praise and other nonverbal acknowledgments of expected behavior, like a smile or thumbs up gesture. Acknowledging students when they are engaged in expected behaviors not only communicates appreciation for their efforts, but also signals to the students that adults are paying attention to what they are doing. In practice, active supervision can be used by first identifying the activity or transition that would benefit most from active supervision. Before using active supervision, it is important to make sure that routines are in place and expectations are established for the target activity. Once expectations are understood, you can provide the cue or prompt to initiate the activity. While the activity ensues, you will move around the setting, scanning and monitoring, and use proximity to signal to students that you are alert and monitoring. Then, reinforce desired behaviors and, if necessary, use private corrections to help students be successful when students are not meeting expectations. Thank you for watching. Please visit ci3t.org for more information and additional resources. Could leave it at that, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this strategy and talk with you about some other things you might consider, and of course, share some of the resources. Now, this is a really great handout that talks about more about active supervision. Just a brief little overview of the definition. Again, it's a low intensity strategy, and it's all about helping and supporting kids to abide by rules and also preventing challenging behavior with some of the actions that you are doing as the educator, moving around, talking with folks, scanning, escorting, interacting, being up and around, interacting with kids. And so again, it can be used across the tiers, and it's quite versatile for in terms of the number of different places that we can use it. We'll go over these steps in depth in just a moment. But in terms of like where you could use this strategy, so you can think of things like either we could use active supervision in like the classroom setting or outside of the classroom. So inside of the classroom makes quite a lot of sense because when we are working with kids, when we're doing direct instruction or when we're facilitating conversations or when we're facilitating independent work time, there are certain things we want students to be doing and things that we do not want them to be doing. So anytime we want to increase a behavior or support students with working towards a specific goal, we can use active supervision to kind of move about the room, engage with kids, and help them to make sure that they're being on task and successful. Okay. So, sometimes, you might see a teacher that might be sort of sitting up by the desk, maybe working on some paperwork or email, that's not really signaling that you are watching kids and trying to support their success. But if you're moving about, that's showing kids that, hey, I'm checking on you, seeing how you're doing and making sure that you're being successful. But a lot of the literature on active supervision also takes a look at sort of this outside the classroom piece of it. So there are plenty of spaces in our school communities that are not necessarily related to like direct academic instruction. You've got, the playground, you've got cafeteria, you've got some of those more liminal spaces of arrival and dismissal, walking through the hallways. But in those situations, we do want kids to be doing certain things and for them to not be doing other things. So active supervision can be a strategy that you use in some of those places. We've seen active supervision used to increase safety behaviors at dismissal time, reduce tardies, as adults are moving across the hallways, helping escorting kids to get to the classroom on time. So we can use this in sort of both places for great success. And active supervision is a strategy I think a lot of folks, I would say, would do intuitively, but in terms of thinking about it as like a set of or a practice in a set of other low intensity strategies, perhaps this would be a new way to kind of think about it. Nevertheless, I would bet that some of y'all have probably used this strategy before, or are thinking of a place that you would like to use it. So if you would please pop open the chat and drop us a line. What do you think? How would you implement, or how do you integrate active supervision in the work you're currently doing with kids? And what are maybe some other opportunities that you might use this in the future? Joni, I said that is a great suggestion there. Like, yeah, it is tempting to talk with, kind of hang out and talk with folks during recess, but recess can be a time when there may be some undesirable behaviors happening, maybe some unsafe play, and moving about is a great way to do that. Station time, very nice. Having lunch with students at the hallway transitions, 100%. Morning and arrival and dismissal, absolutely, yes. Question about kind of who can implement active supervision. Now, I'm going to run this by Kathleen in real time, but my opinion is if you're earning a paycheck at a school, you can do active supervision.
And I will say that, and that's a really good point, Grant, like at your school or in your district, your leaders, like, and if some of you might be those people, have often made decisions like, I want everybody that's employed here to know how to do behavior specific praise or how to do pre-correction or how to do active supervision. Personally, I think it's super helpful, like within a classroom. And as Grant was saying, in a lot of other places, like it would be awesome if everybody who has lunchtime supervision or spends time in the hallway, or I saw people talk about arrival and dismissal. Think about what a positive culture and climate that you're putting together when everybody's main interactions are positive and not going after somebody because there's a mistake that's happened. So I agree with you, Grant. Absolutely. And I would also encourage people to put it into their school-wide professional learning plans for every single adult, paraprofessionals. And Grant, I'm sure we'll mention this shortly, there's even resources for families to learn how to do that at home so that they can be engaged with their kids.
Some really great comments in the chat here, and I really like how in addition to obviously supporting increasing rule following behavior and decreasing challenging behavior, it's a nice opportunity to make some more connections with kids. It's really important that when kids come to our schools that they have at least one adult there that they know cares about them. And that's just really important. And one way to help to facilitate more of that is through thinking about the positive ways that we can interact with kids. So I totally agree. Feel free to keep going off in the chat about what you've got with active supervision. I'm just going to plug us along here in this old PowerPoint. So another thing to kind of think about here is that these low intensity strategies can be used as standalone tier 2 interventions for kids that might need that. I think, we might think about tier 2 as more sort of packaged interventions or specific things like check and check out or behavior contracts. But, we can use low intensity strategies with greater intensity and frequency to help kids who data suggests might need a little bit more than what's sort of happening at tier 1. So this is definitely something you can use, and you can look at specific data sources around screening or any sort of behavior that you're seeing with ODRs and that kind of a thing to suggest students who might benefit from this. And you can follow your similar tier 2 policies to, we can use a little bit more active supervision with a kid. In addition to this being a package as maybe another type of intervention at tier 2 or tier 3. So let's talk turkey. 8 steps to implement active supervision. Now, I'm just going to double check. All right. I am firmly on my soapbox before I get into this one piece. So I talk a lot about evidence-based practices with my undergrads. And I talk about the importance of it, but it's not just, oh, I'm just going to use evidence-based practices. There's a specific rationale here. And that is that when you use evidence-based practices, what you're essentially doing is you're replicating the success that scientists, researchers have found by doing a certain procedure in the field. So, what exactly, when a study says we used active supervision to increase rule following behavior in the hallways, what does that mean when they did that? Well, they followed a set of procedures to make sure that the practice is implemented and with high enough fidelity. So if you want to get the same results from an evidence-based practice that you think is beneficial for your kids, you want to look at how those folks did it and replicate that in your context to get the greatest chance of seeing the successful outcomes that you want to see for kids. Okay, dismount from the soapbox, and now we're back to regular conversation. So, okay, so let's get into it. Active supervision. First thing you want to do, step one, you want to identify the activity or transition period that would benefit most from active supervision. So, I think a lot of folks can immediately think about, I know when I would like to use some more active supervision. So a lot of folks thinking, transition times, anytime it's less structured in the hallways. And we've said a lot about these things. So, if it's something that's, if you're thinking about your own classroom or your own learning context, I'm sure you've got some times in your mind. You might also think about maybe things at a school-wide level. And you might also think about what the data tell you. So if you are in a system that looks at school-wide data, and I just saw I just saw that in the comments. Very nice. So you might want to look at your school-wide data to say, where are office discipline referrals coming from? Where are minors coming from? Like, what is that telling us? And if there's a place that is increasing or spiking, that would be a great database decision to say, we're going to start right there. Maybe the cafeteria is looking like a hot mess right now. Let's start there. So, different ways to tackle this sort of first piece here. Step two, ensure that the routine for the target activity is familiar to our kids and understood. And if not, we got to establish that. So we've got to look at two sort of choices here. Do we have the expectations in place? If you're in a school that does PBIS or Ci3T with high enough fidelity, you can probably assume that you've got behavior expectations taught and revisited frequently, but maybe you might not, or we might have put that off for a while, or maybe you aren't sure. The first thing you want to do is make sure that, well, actually, this is the second thing, because it's step two. The second thing you want to do is make sure that those rules are known to students, because you can't really expect kids to follow certain expectations if they don't know the expectations. So making sure that they understand those, that's step two. And you might refer to your school-wide expectation matrices, your setting matrices. Say, what does the classroom look like? What does the hallway look like? What are our school-wide expectations on this? So that's step two. Step three is beginning the actual process. So you've kind of laid the groundwork for active supervision. And, for when I think about behavior, I do think about kind of like, the back end and sort of the front end. So you want to do some stuff in the background and the lead up to class, the prep work to done behind the scenes to get you ready for when you can actually in front of students and you're working with them. So here's where kind of the front facing part of active supervision comes into play. So wherever you're at, maybe transition to independent work time, going to the hallway, coming back in from the cafeteria, provide the cue to begin whatever activity it is. And you'll notice, so there's a little pre-correction module picture right there. So pre-correction pairs well with active supervision. So it's nice to do kind of both at the same time. If you're looking for kids to do specific behaviors and you're going to be looking for those, pre-correct them. Say, hey, we're going to start this independent work time. Let's review what it looks like to be successful doing your independent work time. A, B, C, and D, lay it all out, and then you'll be ready to go. And then as the activity is unfolding, you're going to be scanning and you're going to be monitoring the area. So you're visually scanning, you're moving your body around the classroom, you're offering behavior specific praise, providing nonverbal feedback for kids, just sort of moving about, scanning and monitoring the area. You're looking for stuff. Okay, you're keeping your eyes peeled for student behaviors. Step 5. Signal your awareness of students' actions through proximity prompts and nonverbal communication. So it's all about something that I would call with itness. You're signaling to folks that you are seeing what's going on and you know what's going on, and you're walking through and picking out things and providing praise to folks. And if you do see some rule infractions, you want to handle that in a business-like fashion, privately. We're not going to shame kids. We're not going to make a big deal out of it. We're going to respond with empathy and in a business-like fashion for kids, and make sure that they know what the expectations are, and then also give opportunities to let them do those things so you can come back and praise them. And then, as we're moving through the activity at different points, and at the end, we're going to wrap up and we're going to say, hey, thank you so much for working so hard during our independent work time today. You did a really nice job of working quietly, of being respectful with your peers, and staying on task. Okay, sort of putting a bow on it and connecting it to the pre-correction behaviors that you mentioned earlier before you started. And finally, step 8, providing students with feedback. So similar to pre-correction, we do want to give kids an opportunity to share how they are perceiving the behaviors that or behavior supports that we're providing. We want kids to be involved and be stakeholders in this process as well. So these, just like other things, these are available on our website, these forms here. And then finally, I want to talk just quickly about thinking about those similar ideas to pre-correction, thinking about how the extent to which our active supervision is in place as designed, thinking back to my soapbox, thinking about social validity in terms of our students, do they perceive this to be an acceptable strategy, and do staff feel that way? And also thinking about student outcomes. Is this really working? So we have some resources on the website that kind of help with this information. Looking at graphs and data collection sources, checklists to make sure that things are in place. All that stuff is kind of towards the bottom of that module to help you to make sure that you're following the procedures as outlined to get the best chance of success for those students. And we have a ton of other resources in the module, things like these other handouts, videos, family resources as well. So if folks want to do this at home, you can do that there too. Okay, that's all there for you to explore. So similar situation earlier, and I will kick it to Stacy in a moment, but not yet. We're going to give you some chance to either explore the module, so kind of take some time just to poke around with it. If you're looking to implement this at Tier 1 or it's a standalone intervention at Tier 2, or if you want to think about how you can be a trainer and coach to teach other folks this, you're going to get a chance to choose the breakout room of your choice. Again, the whole idea is we want to equip you with that knowledge, give you a chance to apply it, and really give you the chance to make an impact immediately following today of the students that you work with. So, if you could, we will just be brave today. So, okay. And again, for folks that are participating in some of those PD points, those are certainly there for you. Stacy, what do you got for us?
But if you're going to go back and use these, I encourage you to give yourself just the gift of clicking through things, like check out the resources. You might recall that both Allison and Grant showed you those one-page infographics, and then you saw 2 different versions of little videos. You might just review that much. But if you're going to go do this as like a Tier 2, take a couple minutes to go check out the implementation checklist and the treatment integrity and the social validity, because the gift of this is it's designed to save your time. And so by you having all this stuff at your fingertips, it creates also a consistency in the professional learning offerings. Because all of us, at least I feel like when I was in these types of trainings, it always felt like somebody was explaining things just a little bit different, or this person described 5 steps, this person did 8, whatever. But like the goal would be consistency. And it's important for your families as well to make sure that people are on the same page. And when you've come to these Project Empower session, our goal is for you to get what you need. If you're the person that's going to take this back and go do it, I want you to know that I also have the honor of getting to be a part of the PBS National Center on Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. There are over 26,000 schools across the United States that are implementing just the PBIS arm of this. And I will tell you, December is a month that typically spikes in terms of challenging behaviors. So what you've learned today, don't wait. Don't make this be like, signing up for an exercise plan that you're going to wait to the first Monday, lose 5 pounds before you weigh in. Don't do that. Go do it tomorrow. So go try out these strategies. And when you do these, you don't have to be perfect. But remember those resources that are there for you, so that when you come to the next one, it'll look very similar. The two topics for next time are instructional choice and increased opportunities to respond. The rhythm of this experience will be the same. You're going to come, we're going to talk about an overview of what those strategies are. You're going to hear from 2 different people, but we want you to go have what you need to go do that. And I would urge you, don't wait, just start. And if you are somebody that is here and you want to show an impact on kids, you've got everything that you needed, as we talked about. So you've got an implementation checklist to help you get started. You've got the forms that you would need, and then you have that output so that if it's not enough, and that's okay, because there's going to be times where a kid might need something more intensive, like a behavior contract, or use the direct behavior ratings, or a tier 3 support like functional assessment-based interventions. These are also recorded, but this will be there for you so that if you wanted to go push play and have people come hear what you've done, go do that. I know Tammy's, one of our coaches who's here tonight, she used to, as a principal, pay 2 people to come to this with the understanding they would come back and present it. So you have what you need. And some people have done this very cool thing where they literally the next day just say, hey, I went to this training and this is what I learned. I learned these 2 topics. I've included 1 video, 1 infographic. I just wanted to share this with you as my principal in case you want to share it with others, or you might share it to somebody on your professional learning community. So we hope you found something that is useful to you. And I also want to remind you, these are all positive, proactive approaches. We are all committed to making positive, productive, and safe learning environments for kids, and it starts with us. I also want you to know, and this is hot off the press, so we haven't even submitted this for publication yet, but we've told you pre-pandemic that when teachers do these types of things, like when Ci3T is in place, we know that teachers tend to report lower burnout rates than the national average. We've done some preliminary data analysis just recently with seasoned implementers to show that even in the post-pandemic era, that is still true. Not in every domain, but in some. So short story is, these strategies are good for the adults as well, because as the adult, it is alerting you to the expectation. It is letting you look for the good. You will feel so much better, like less exhausted, if you would, at trying out those things. I really appreciate your professionalism and the gift of your time and wanting to come learn about these strategies. I especially want to thank Stacy and Allison and Grant for their contributions tonight, and just a great team hitter. So thank you all. Appreciate the gifts of your time.